Okay, well, we'll get started and maybe more people will join in as we're talking. Otherwise, this is an exclusive for Erin.
Just for you.
Yay! So
Very
before
cool.
we dive into our main session, I'd love to quickly introduce myself. I'm Aleezay. I'm a designer at NaturalReader here in Vancouver, Canada. And I've been at my current company working in B2B SaaS in the AI space for about 4 years now. But I've been designing much longer. So I was also a student at university and a freelance designer. And I think that's a really good way to get started. I also host Friends of Figma events here in Vancouver as a community lead, and I'm excited to be creating spaces where designers and other tech folks can connect and learn together and grow together. And I'm really excited about this event. It's a 24-hour nonstop virtual celebration of the Friends of Figma communities around the world. So because this event is built on global collaboration, every chapter hosts their own 1-hour session with their own speaker. It's usually local speakers and local insights. So our goal is to celebrate the richness and diversity of the global community, and it's accessible to anyone, anywhere. So this talk and all of the other talks will be available online. You can watch the recordings back later. And I would love to introduce our speaker today, Kimberly Chiu. She's someone I truly admire for the way she works with purpose and authenticity. I actually met Kim a few years ago at a config after party, so Figma brought us together. Kim is a UX designer at Wagepoint, and she's super into wellness. She enjoys doodling, and she's also an amazing biohacker. And she'll tell you more about that in a minute. I'm going to hand it off to Kim.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Figma did bring us together, and it's still bringing us together now, which is really cool. Thank you for joining, and thanks for the invite. I'm really excited to be here. First of maybe many world tours. I see more folks joining in, so welcome. And yeah, well-being, I think in general, and like it's been something I've been like kind of a fan from afar. I've been an admirer of like wellness spaces, like mental health and all this stuff. But it wasn't until recent years that I really became more passionate about it. So I'm really excited to talk about it. My day job is a UX designer. We make payroll software, which is fun in its own. But also at work, I'm a really big like culture and team wellness advocate. Not official title, but title by me. And at work, I basically also try to like bring in aspects of like well-being. So I try to advocate for things like group snack time, actual lunch plus learning. And then also like I've somehow tricked a few of my, not tricked, influenced some of my teammates to, participate in like big stretches and like fun activities. Like we did like a team build that was like building forts, which was just an excuse to make a mess of our houses. But yeah, just trying to bring a little bit of, fun and movement and motivation into the workplace. But I think that in general, I'm really excited, and we'll talk about like our agenda here a little bit. We're going to be talking about just a very high level talk about like well-being, what is that, and also tapping into what that looks like or what that could look like at work. We'll step into a bit of a check-in and more of just a highlight on check-ins and what they are and what they could mean. I'll share some of my hacks. These are like little fun prompts that I like, and they're super secret and maybe cool to you too. We'll go into story time, which is a personal share, and then we'll kind of close off with 3 wishes, which is a really cool thing, sounding what other folks I've spoken to wish they had worked on a little bit more in their own well-being journey. Okay, so TLDR on well-being, very kind of like oversimplified version, well-being is kind of a catch-all around the quality of your experience, so the quality of your life. We want a high quality life, and it's also really interesting because that is something that only you can define and only you can measure. Everybody's going to have a different definition of what quality looks like. We're going to have different understandings of, how do we feel? Only we can feel how we feel. But the cool thing is, you may already know this, but the more likely that you're feeling safe, the more you are yourself. And that's through being, because you're authentic and you have a good quality in that experience. And we want to be authentic. That's also something we want to be as a creative, as designers. When we are ourselves, we can think more freely, we can share ideas, and not be afraid of like judgments, and just be more in alignment with our own truths. And last but not least, our daily commitments, what we choose to do, our habits, which are also our lifestyle, basically influences our well-being. So when we have commitments that we do on a daily basis, it feeds into our well-being. And because it's just more than just the physical stuff. Like, I have a little kind of weird doodle at the bottom there, but your well-being it spans so many factors, like beyond your physical. It talks about your spiritual connection, your social well-being, your mental clarity, the amount of energy you have. So yeah, they're both kind of in this cool relationship with one another. So the good news is, as designers, as creatives, and as people, you've already got the skills. You've already been designing your own well-being and your life. That's how we got here. Your decisions, your choices have led you to this point. So you likely have already a personalized and introspective practice of some sort, one that is probably changing as you go, as your needs change, as your life develops, right? But on top of that, if you are a designer or a person who designs solutions or anything like that, or work with products, you also have another set of awesome frameworks and processes that you've been doing all along. Because as we've been, designing things and products, we've been, using frameworks and things like, we know we have discovery. We know we need to iterate constantly. We might have stand-ups where we update each other. You've already been practicing a ton of these skills at work. So this talk is also going to be geared towards what are some things that you can influence and take and borrow from your practice, bring it into your own well-being practice, and vice versa, and invite more of your habits into the workday. And hello New York City. Okay, so I spoke about your lifestyle, which is a large collection of commitments and habits that you do that support well-being, and that itself is a system. So an analogy that I've been kind of using is similar to a design system. Your life system is largely guided by principles, right? What you're choosing to do is derived from values, and you do all of these things because you want to get to an end goal that is guided by a certain vision. You're also trying to maintain consistency in your life and also in your design system through repeatable patterns and things like that. And what it looks like in your day-to-day, it might be you are trying to be committed to a certain thing, you have consistency. And we also in our lives use certain protocols. Just like in a design system, you might use a certain set of components or assets or elements for a particular type of work. You might have a specific set of protocols that you use when you're in certain situations. And the most important one that I think is that just like a design system, your life system is always a work in progress. Somebody is always working on that thing, and that somebody is probably you for your life system. And it's great because it means that you get to maintain it, you get to change it, you get to fix what's not working, you get to maintain what is and just make that even better. And yeah, I think it's a really cool thing that we have. So one thing that I want to ask the chat, just to kind of get us going a little, is I'm really curious on what's maybe one or two of your go-to habits that you might be using right now that keeps you grounded at work. So maybe if you're open, pop it in the chat. If not, you can think about it and hold that answer just inside. But I'll give it a minute if anybody wants to pop in their answer and see what folks do at work and try to borrow some habits. So these could also be things that, like, maybe something stressful happens, maybe something awesome happens, and what is your kind of go-to place to bring you back to yourself? Because I don't know about you, but sometimes in our work as designers, I've experienced very high and low points where I definitely need a little bit of grounding. So it's awesome if you have any. I will share mine's. Okay, so make sure I go for a walk every day. Yes. Okay, that is a big one. I hear that a lot. It's awesome, Cindy.
I work from home, so I hop on my walking pad to stay focused.
Yes. I actually have a trampoline. You can't see it, but it's over there. It exists. Going to the gym. Yeah, that is a major one. I've talked to many people, and that's often their go-to in keeping their beautiful minds juiced up and their bodies feeling good.
Yeah. It's also the stuff you do outside of work, right? Your daily habits.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. Erin always schedules a day to go out in the middle of the week, and they can just, dip into the surroundings and be offline. That's awesome. That's really nice. Okay, I might borrow that one.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to share a couple of mines when it comes to check-ins. So checking in on the job. I know that we had some examples here that are maybe more for like off days, but I think it's also really important to try to bring some of the things that you do and make room for that in your day job. It's tough, but sometimes it's very necessary. For me, it's checking in, and it's something that I do when I'm just not feeling quite myself. Like, for example, if something really maybe stressful, but maybe not stressful happens, but my reaction is really large. Like, we have a design session where we get feedback, and if I notice that in particular, I get a little personal, I get a little reactive, and I don't know why. I think that's my cue to check in. So these are my 4. They've been encrypted just for the sake of some fun, but these are my go-tos, and I'm really curious before I reveal each of them if anybody has any guesses as to what they could be. We did this on a test run. They're not. I thought that they were really fun and sneaky, but
it's a little tough.
Yeah.
But once you hear the first one, the rest of them get easier.
Okay. Okay. Well, maybe I'll reveal the first one, and then if you have any guesses as we go, we can do that. But my first one, and also these are in a list of easiest, as in I will check the first because it's kind of the easiest, and the last one is like harder to obtain. But the first one is, when was the last time I ate? So a lot of the times I'm just hangry and cranky, and when I need a snack or when I need something, if that's an easy fix, that's something that I can bring, either at my desk, or I can prioritize maybe an earlier scheduled lunch or something like that, just to keep my sugars going and brain flowing. I think a lot of the times I just get a little bit more agitated, and the colors get a little too vivid, and I just need a little snack. Okay, the second one is more towards remote maybe, but the second one, thank you. The second one, do you have any ideas? This one's a little harder, I think. If not, that's okay too. I'm just going to reveal them. Okay. So the second one is, how warm is my seat though? So this is more of like a sneaky, subtle bum check that I do, where basically it's like, okay, have I been sitting here for 2 hours? Like it's kind of a cue for me to stand up, or just even a mini stretch. Like sometimes when we're deep into the focus, it's hard to get up in the moment, but it's something that is also very easy, very accessible. And sometimes it means, I've had my snack, it didn't help. Nothing is flowing. I need to get up and do a little bit of a stretch. Number 3 is kind of sneakily already mentioned, but it's, do I need a walk right now? So trying to put in a walk in the middle of the day is also tough, because you have to leave the office or your home or wherever you're working from. But I find that these are just really refreshing, especially when you're faced with a problem that you just can't seem to solve. And I really think that this is one of my go-tos after something like a user interview, where you've just ingested so much emotion and so much information that you have so many ideas buzzing around your mind, that I feel like a walk helps you, just reset, and it lets you come back. I have a dog emoji there because I have a dog, but sometimes she doesn't make it out with my walks. But the last one is the rarest of them all. It's actually really hard to do on the job. And this is it nap time? Very rarely is it number 4. It has happened. It's my cue when it's like, okay, I'm having a really big migraine or a headache, where something is just really not right. None of the things above have helped. I've clearly been, I just need some rest. So doing a 15 or even a 10-minute sit down with your eyes closed, nothing on, really helps to just reset, and at least gives me a little bit more juice to push through the day, and also gives me a little bit more calmness so that I'm not so high energy and frantic. But these are just 4. These are my 4 for now. I have a little asterisk there because I do work on them from time to time. And also, if my situation doesn't fit any of the 4, it means that I can't solve this on the job, but I need to write it down. For me, I need to think about this, and I need to work on it afterwards and go into like a little deeper of a check-in and try to find a solution or a root cause. Awesome. So it's story time, and this one is a little bit of a journey, as most stories are, but this has also a collage here. So from left to right, it's kind of the flow of the story. So the couple on the left, it's basically me, and that was me 2 years ago. I was training a lot, and I actually had accomplished my very first half marathon. So I went from like pretty much the bed to the road, and it was an amazing time. So I was pretty physically fit. I felt really good mentally also. My social connections were there. At the time, retrospectively, I feel like I was probably all right. I traveled, I went to Portugal, I went to eat a lot of tarts. So life in that moment was really great. I had a lot of stuff going on. And like I said, I just finished training, and all of a sudden, I was just getting sick. And I don't know what had triggered it, or if it was even a trigger, but I remember started really 2 years ago, where after I came back from my trips, I started just getting really sore and tired. And then it built up into almost full body pain and like numbness. And I was really scared. I was like, what is going on? This is not a great sign for me. And the pain kind of like grew and grew. And eventually I went to the doctors, where I was officially diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. And that is basically an autoimmune disease that targets your joints by sending a ton of inflammation and keeping them and basically attacking the joints in your body. So it's not very fun. And I was really, in the moment, I was really freaked out. I didn't know what to do. I kind of froze in my path. My day job was still going on. I had gotten this diagnosis, and for a long time I didn't know what to do. So I was just going through the motion. My body, my mind was kind of on autopilot. And mind you that this was me 2 years ago when I didn't have all those check-ins, when I didn't think about well-being. I was just kind of brute forcing things. I was like, oh, I'm like a young person. I can just sleep later. I don't need to really mind what I'm doing, or like I wasn't really prioritizing myself, basically. And this disease got me good. I eventually started taking medication. There's a photo down there of like these like straw and like dried herbs looking things. That's actually traditional Chinese medicine, which I tried. I was also eventually wheelchair bound, which is me up there. I was trying to make the best of it, but eventually I got into a routine of going to the doctors more, getting medication, and like basically flipped my entire lifestyle. And getting sick was kind of one of the best things that happened to me, and I am really grateful for it now, because it kind of launched me into this space of really needing, like out of force, but I'm here nonetheless, of really needing to prioritize what my full day looked like, because of my disease, I would get really tired really fast. I couldn't use my mouse at times. It got so bad that I wasn't able to like get up and down the stairs or even put on shoes or anything like that. So it was pretty rough. So now, thanks to that, I've learned a lot of lessons and I've applied to a lot of things. And I've essentially reworked the majority of my lifestyle. And that's kind of why well-being and wellness is, such a big thing for me. But yeah, like I said, it's quite the journey. And thanks to that, I started reworking a bunch of habits. And one of the things that I was working on was I had this feeling of like just low energy. And because of the disease, I'm like super hypersensitive. So I really wanted to figure that out. It wasn't working for me. One of the habits turned into, so it started off with, wow, I feel really tired all the time. What can I do? And I started to do this thing where I applied almost like a design challenge on myself. I was like, okay, this is not working. Going to the doctors every day is just not it. I have to do something that's going to be active and change. So I took this on as like almost a design challenge, and I broke it down in the same way, where I did some research. I tried some iterations and experiments, and ultimately I wanted to reimagine my gut health, and with the priority of creating an all-day solution. So what I ended up doing, which was one of my favorite experiments, is the picture on the right here. I challenged myself to like basically upholding a month-long challenge where I try to include at least like 50 different diverse fruits and vegetables to increase my, gut microbiome. It gets a little geekier, but eventually this thing became one of my favorite experiments, and it led to so much learning. And I brought it into work with me, because every day I would try to have like a different snack. Or now, even these days, when I go grocery shopping, I think about, okay, when was the last time I had this? Or did I already eat this last week? Should I try something else? And this really stuck. And it was a great way for me to just not get overwhelmed with like, I need to fix this. It was a really progressive iteration that had many different experiments in it that were just a lot of fun. And it didn't feel like I need to fix my life. It felt like how am I learning about myself today? So with that being said, I'm curious, and this is back to chat, but I'm curious if you have anything that you would like to share or not. But maybe, what's one challenge that you could set for yourself to work on this summer? Is there anything that you've been feeling inside that you kind of want to get some online stranger accountability going maybe, and you want to pop it into the chat of like a challenge you want to work on. I know it's a hard thing to want to just focus on one thing and commit to one thing. I have this issue. That's why I always try to tell my family what I'm going to work on, and they will persistently ask about it and ask for my progress. So if you have anything that you want to work on, I highly recommend getting people to, keep you accountable. But yeah, if there's anything you want to share, this is a time that we can kind of talk about a challenge, anything that you were curious about. And if not, that's okay, cool. That's okay too.
If not, I can give you mine to start off. So for me, I set myself goals and they're pretty easy to follow when I'm in my day-to-day routine. But often in summer, there's trips, there's camping, there's beach days, there's so much other stuff going on. It's easy to, for example, if your goal is to eat more protein or to take like a daily supplement, it's easy to forget that when you're just kind of out with friends all the time over the summer. So I want to keep those social activities going, but also keep meeting those goals, those health goals that I've set for myself.
That's a really good one. Yeah, I can imagine it being pretty tough when you're camping and you have like your whole kind of supplement routine, or you have like a change in like when you're eating and what you have access to. So yeah, that's a tough one. I think it's a pretty cool one though, because like you're also going to get to really have to adapt and really commit to like, oh, I really am going to take this vitamin or this supplement for like 40 plus days.
Yeah, pack the ginger shots in the cooler.
There we go. That's a pretty cool one. She makes her own ginger shots. So that's just that chat. You should know this. She's fired up. Okay, maybe we can move on to talking a little bit more about the 3 wishes. So when I did in-person things and I was trying to connect more deeply with people, this was basically after I got sick. I was sick and I was in my recovery. I wanted to learn more from other people. So every chance that I had to, like, my light keeps turning off. I'm sorry. Every chance that I had to basically talk with other people, especially designers, I would try to loop in a well-being question. And from that, I mostly heard these 3 things. So I called them 3 wishes. 3 things that most people wish they had done earlier. So setting boundaries, moving more, and sharing earlier. So jumping into the first one, setting boundaries, it turns out most people don't like to say no, which makes sense. I think I also have a hard time with this. I think as designers, where your job is pretty much to please your users or your customers, you're trying to get a lot of this validation, and it's hard sometimes to say, no, I don't want to do that for you, or no, I'm not going to make this thing, or I'm not going to take this into account. But so maybe it's a part of that, but the dreaded word of no sometimes feels really loaded and really heavy. And sometimes it feels like if we say no, the person on the other side is going to just dislike us, right? They're not going to understand us. But actually, when we say no, or maybe it's not no, but whatever it is, it's whatever the boundary is. When we set that up, we're advocating for our own needs, right? We're saying, no, I can't do this because I won't have enough capacity to do that. I hope you will understand. So every time we set this boundary and we ask for respect from another person, we make more room for ourselves. And that's really important because it reminds us that we share this space. And a lot of the times when you hear a no, or when you hear somebody else's boundary, it's not personal. So when you hear a no for you, or when you say no, hopefully everybody is in alignment that it's not a personal thing. It's just that our wants just don't align. So whenever you ask for something to be done the next day, or you ask for a developer for a 5-minute huddle and it's just not the right time, it's not because of you, and that's okay. It's just not the right time, and you can always talk about it. And I think that one thing that's come out a few times is that setting boundaries might not always be possible, especially at work. Maybe you feel like it's not, you don't feel, maybe there's like a level of psychological safety that hasn't been developed. You are maybe in a new team, new environment, you're just getting started. You feel like you have to say yes to everything. And that is reality. So it's tough. It's tough to, start doing that. But I still encourage, if you can, to try. And if you do hear a no, curious about it. I'm really curious why, you said that. I want to learn more about your perspective. And you can also say no without it impacting like deadlines and things like that. You can say no to, hey, I don't want to go to this social. Sorry, I'm going to, do my own thing, because you get to protect your own time. You can opt out of like a meeting so you can protect your own time and watch a recording instead if that's available to you. So there's always like boundaries that you can play with. And I encourage you to, as I say that, I'm encouraging myself to set more boundaries. Moving more is also a really big one. We kind of have a theme there in the chat earlier. Everybody wants to move. Your body does, like, it deserves to move and it craves it. A lot of people that I spoke to wish that they had been doing that earlier, especially remote folks who are now taking a lot more of like rehab or exercise plans, or are in some type of pain or like immobility because of the lack of movement. So it's really important that we're proactive and we take care of our bodies, because we also then take care of our minds. Because you probably already know this, but when you move, you're flushing so many toxins, you've got blood flow going, you're helping to regulate your nervous system, and it just also helps you become more yourself, because you have a little bit of distance, a little bit of activity. And it's tough, but I hope we can always remember that it's not always a desk job. We have the ability to make small things, whether it's getting up and walking to get more water, or a snack, or a walk in the middle of the day, standing during stand-up, which is something that I'm trying to do more, or even connecting with people and like going outside, finding activities. A little plug for check out your local chapters for in-person events that you can go outside, maybe to the park, maybe even to something to meet people. And yeah, it's just like a big one that protects you long term. So definitely try to get this going more. And lastly, one of the last wishes that was interesting, it surprised me a little bit, was people wish that they shared earlier, that they were a little bit more courageous and were able to get vulnerable with maybe their team, maybe a mentor, maybe even a manager, if that relationship was more personal. A lot of folks were mentioning, when I talked to them, it was like, it would have been cool to have shared this, to talk about my emotions or my burnout, my stress, because it would help me have deeper connections with people. And this is really true. I feel like we see maybe posts on LinkedIn now that are like talking about certain life events, and it's being shared in that way. But I think it's one thing to express, and also one thing to get to have a conversation over it. And I think like we have opportunities for small talk, which keep us relatable in reality in the same time. But there's also moments for big talk, which are the deeper things that build more meaningful connections with people. And I know that maybe similar to setting boundaries, being vulnerable all the time is maybe not accessible to you, and probably not for every single person in your life. But I encourage you to find ways that you can express yourself, reflect, go find community spaces or people that you can connect with that are like-minded, to chat with, friends and family, or even just if you don't have access to any of those things, I find that self-reflection, either through writing. I do this thing now where it's like I write a letter to myself when a situation arises, and actually really helps me. Or I will, on my walk, just talk out loud and share to the wind, and it just feels really cathartic. So sharing earlier, maybe with people, maybe sometimes with yourself, is something that can be really powerful. And I think that brings us to our wrap. So thank you so much for sticking it all the way through. But just as a reminder, keep things fun. Try to experiment and recharge in your own way. Take whatever you need from work, including frameworks, including things that you've been doing. Your skills are really there. And we can all create. We're all creative creatures. So really, well-being is just trying to keep you going, and it's not a sprint, it's more of a marathon. So don't, get super excited and like burn up. It's about the long and slow, even though sometimes it feels like it is a rush to the finish. But it's really important, lastly, to build sustainable systems that work for you. And so you can be more joyful, find more joy in your day-to-day, and be more yourself, even when you're on the job. So yeah, thank you so much for tuning in. And I think we have some time for some Q&A. Maybe we can chat amongst ourselves.
Thank you so much, Kim, for that talk. It's really helpful to sometimes step away from all the technical things going on and, step away from a little bit of the learning and learn about more of the systems that we could build to keep our creative practices going. So those are some really good tips. If anyone has any questions, just pop them in the chat.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I hope that
We have a question from Erin. She's currently designing a mobile application for a wellness company and is curious to know how her team can build a design culture that supports creativity and well-being without glorifying being overworked. That's a good question. Also, during the user research stage, how can we design without emotionally over-identifying with user pains?
Interesting. So let's break that down maybe. I guess what you're kind of asking, Erin, is, so two questions. One is building like team and design culture that's trying to support everyone, which is tough, without like glorifying being overworked. I think that's really tough. It depends on your, I guess, company size. Like, I'm not probably in a position to give advice on that side, but I would say just from my own experience, I think it's just about listening to what the people need and making it possible if you can, to include folks into the conversation, especially when you're doing things around culture. I think at where I work, it's a big emphasis on culture is kind of created like from everybody. You have some ground rules set from leadership and the company in general, but team culture, you need to show up to kind of keep it going. And it's not made by one person. At least the culture that lasts is not made from one person. So I would say for that, maybe just figure out if there's an opportunity to chat more with individuals that you want to kind of just align on, what does everybody value and what do they think a good team culture looks like, especially with wellness and well-being, because everybody's objectives for well-being is different. So I think just having an open conversation and pulling on the themes that people are able to share, if they're able to be vulnerable, could help you and your team build that type of maybe early foundation or ideas around certain habits that they want to bring in for their team culture. Aleezay, do you have anything on that?
I think it's also a good idea to align on the timeline at the start. So sometimes it's always going to be, you'll have busy periods, but then making sure if you've had a busy week that everyone has a slower week to follow up so everyone gets that rest in. But also trying to make sure that you keep it steady, that it's not intense deadlines that everyone needs to deliver within a day or two, trying to make sure that you remember that rest also fuels creativity. And if everyone's kind of overworked, you might need to reiterate a lot more. And I know in startup environments, this can often be overlooked because you're always trying to like get the best thing out as fast as possible. But then if you have to reiterate 5-10 times, it's not beneficial, like it's better to, obviously you will always have to reiterate, you'll always have to test, you'll always have to do quality assurance and things like that. But making sure that everyone in the creative stage especially is present and able to do their work properly. And a lot of times that is just not overworking yourselves and setting proper deadlines.
Yeah, I think that's a really hard one. And it's about planning and just, it's like meeting that balance of planning, but knowing that you can't plan for everything. So having almost like a backup to say like, we're all in agreement that like work will come, but what are we going to prioritize? We're going to prioritize rest so we don't end up working more. We don't have to, right? And I guess like, Erin, your second question there is, how can I design without emotionally over-identifying with user pains? I think we're not our users unless you're using your application yourself. So I would say, just from my 2 cents is, it can be tough because during the research stage, like you are ingesting so much, you're learning as much as possible and drawing that boundary of, hey, this is what people are saying, and trying your best to not be influenced by it is extremely tough. So I would say to that in my own practice, it's been, how can I differentiate and how can I pull out what are the facts, what are the things that we also can try to solve and we've aligned to solve, and making sure at least we're not bringing a lot of that with us, because sometimes when you speak to users and you get to hear their stories, there's a lot that you hold on to. So making sure you make some distance between that and your insights, or before you go into designing anything further, making sure that you're in a grounded place. Because I think for me, at least, it's kind of tough during that research period when you're just very focused on being a sponge to everything. Yeah.
I think another thing that would help is remembering to keep that balance between user empathy and the business goals. I think that often balances it out, because you can't always give them everything. Users will request so many things, and sometimes they'll need to be kind of deployed one by one. So just keeping that in mind, that you can design for a first stage and then do more research and add another feature. It doesn't all have to go in all at once. So just keeping that MVP in mind. Yeah. Does anyone have any more questions? Thank you, Erin, for your questions.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. And Erin, we actually have a surprise for you. Yay, drum roll. So we have a giveaway, and this is just for participating, for being the first in the chat, and for asking the questions. So we have a $50 gift card. If you DM me your email address, I will send it to you. There's also free shipping, and it can be redeemed in countries where the Figma store currently ships. And thank you, Kim, for the Q&A. Thank you, everyone that tuned in. Coming up next, we have our Friends of Figma Seattle session. It's the Anti-Villain Guide to Design Critiques, and you can scan the QR code to get in. It is a separate registration for each event. And we'd love your feedback. The Friends of Figma World Tour is a global celebration of design. It is the global community coming together, and it's powered by the community. So your opinion matters. This is the first time it's happening, like I mentioned earlier. So please scan the QR code and take a minute to help us make the next experience better. This is one of my favorite slides. It shows the different chapters participating, and these are all the chapters that came together. So it's just kind of a reminder that great things don't happen in isolation. We're all in different places. We're all doing this remotely. And these talks will be available after as well. So you can tune in remotely. This is all done online. The World Tour carries on tomorrow. So it's July 9th and 10th. Okay, thank you, everyone. Have a good night. Enjoy the rest of the sessions. Bye.
Fun.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you.